All right, let's let him in. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. All right, Paula, I'm making you host now.
Great. Your boss?
So just as a reminder, please mute yourself if you're not talking. Thank you all for coming to the storytelling session, our third session as part of the PFAP conference this year. Just to let everyone know, if you have questions, put them in chat, but we will be getting to them at the end of the presentation. So we'll have about 15 minutes towards the end where any questions you have, you can just go into. Thank you all so much for attending. It looks like, yeah, we're 2 minutes past the start time. So I just want to say a big thank you to Kate from the Rural Health Network, who did let me know prior that though grant writing is no longer one of your official duties, has many years of grant writing and storytelling experience and was our first pick when we were sitting together. We found a lot of times this year we'd sit around and we'd hear that people struggle with sharing their story or telling how they do their work or their mission. And we sat and Allison said, who would be perfect? Kate. And our first draft pick and said yes. So thank you so much. And with that, Kate, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen and just simply get started. It is so wonderful to see so many familiar faces and names. That makes me feel a lot better. I have not done this presentation before, so you are all liking. All right, can everybody see my screen okay? I'm going to go into slideshow mode. And if I don't hear anything else, I'm just going to get started.
It looks great.
So, thanks, Tim. So yes, thank you so much for having me, Tim, United Way of Broome County. Thank you, Allison, for thinking that I'm your first pick at this. That's very, very nice to hear. Today, I'm just planning on giving a little bit of a lecture style here with my presentation slides, and then we will just move into question and answer. I know that there's a lot that we can all learn from each other. And there's probably lots of questions that people have that might be a little bit specific. So a lot of people, like Tim said, know me as the veggie lady. I am a food justice advocate, but I'm also a storyteller by nature. I do it in my work and sometimes as a freelance writer. I learned how to tell stories at my grandma's kitchen table. I come from a farm family, so there was a lot of family there and everybody was always sharing stories. So it becomes kind of second nature. And I loved it so much, I actually decided to get an English literature degree, which is obviously not what I do now, but I have done a lot of studying of the storytelling. So I hope that I can share some good stuff with you today. I found, when I was sitting down after I had my first job in food access, sitting down to write grants or even donation appeals, and just having this skill made it so much easier. And so we're really here today to help you weave storytelling into your organization. So why do we tell stories, right? Storytelling 20 times more likely to help people remember a fact, which is an incredible amount more than 25% more. Stories are more memorable. Grab the concept of an idea quickly. They help us grab the idea of a concept quickly. And they also trigger our emotions, right? We've all seen this Maya Angelou quote probably a quadrillion times. It gets passed around like hotcakes, but there's a reason. It's very, very true. And what's in your brain that the cognitive psychologist Jerome Bruner found was oxytocin. And when you, or he really found that storytelling releases oxytocin. So he found that oxytocin sends signals that send safety to the brain, right? So it's produced when we are shown kindness and it motivates cooperation in others. And this enhances a sense of empathy or our experience to our ability to experience others' emotions. So what they found out, and I believe this is in the link that I shared here, is that the amount of oxytocin released by the brain predicted how much people were willing to help others. For example, donating money to a charity or cause based on the narrative. So that is why we tell stories. So what really is storytelling? It's, what is it compared to just like writing out a story? It's really kind of an art form. But we know it as like oral traditions. I'm sure we are all very familiar. Religious traditions and the Iliad, the Odyssey, those are all early oral traditions. It's meant to educate and entertain and share morals. The reason that it's important to understand this history is because humans are hardwired for storytelling. So storytelling is elemental. It's how humans transfer knowledge. So I'm really just trying to build all this up to tell you, use storytelling. It's going to make your data more memorable. It's going to make people give you their time, talent, and treasure. And so right here, I'm showing, you kind of have to take a little bit of the data because that's important. And you have to take a little bit of this art form. You have to put it in your pot and you have to sprinkle a little bit of magic. And that magic is you. And that magic is your story and your expertise. So you want to tell a story. So what do you want to think about? So I always suggest to people just get a piece of paper out and start making notes. If you've ever seen my notes, they're a mess. I like to use just white paper, plain paper, no lines, and just scribble things out. Think about what the purpose or what your call to action is, and think about how you want to focus in on that. Who is your audience? Do not say like all of Broome County. You really have to think, okay, who in Broome County, right? I'm going to look for, people who love soup. I don't know. And why is this important to them? Why would it be important to them to hear your story? And why should they give you their time, talent, and treasure? Like you're trying to convince them. So what's your angle there? Um, and then of course, you got to bring that data in. So sometimes I find like I have so much data that I want to share, but people will get overwhelmed if you just throw data at them all the time. So really like what is the most important data and what medium are you using? So are you going to be posting this to like your blog or your webpage? Are you going to be putting this on Facebook? And that really is going to be, a consideration when you decide, like at the very end, when you decide how you're going to present it. Oh, I want to make sure I didn't skip anything. Okay, I didn't. Arc of storytelling. So this little triangle here is called Freytag's pyramid. And it's actually from the 19th century German novelist who came up with this, but it really applies still today in 2024. So this is what you want to put together to give your story shape. There's always an inciting incident or emotion. Okay, so today I'm going to use the example of the three bears, Goldilocks and the three bears. I feel like that's pretty common. It's also the story that my grandma used to tell me all the time. So that inciting incident, right, for the three bears is that Mama Bear makes some porridge. There's some porridge on the table. And the context and setting is that it's the three bears cottage, right? That's nice and cozy. That rising action would be when Goldilocks walks into the house and is making herself right at home, trying everything, right? Climax conflict, she falls asleep. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Falling action, three bears get home. Goldilocks, I don't know, sometimes she jumps out a window, sometimes she runs away, depending on the ending of the story, That's the conflict resolution. What's your call to action? Don't forget to lock your door. And that's kind of how you give your story shape. So that's your art of storytelling, and you got your data. So when you're starting to tell your story, And when you're writing it and after you've written it, things to keep in mind. Again, that focus. People have such short attention spans. Um, I know that we all know this, but I can't say it enough. No one wants to look at a big jumble of words. No one is going to read that. No one's interested in that unless you're like reading a grant proposal or something like that. But if you're just trying to tell the general public your story, you're going to lose them. So you can, if you do need those details, I say use some bold text and people's eyes will be drawn to that and then they'll read the things around it. So I always like to use a little bit of bold text. Again, be clear and concise, choose your words wisely. Um, I tell some people like it's like poetry, right? So when you're writing a poem, you can't put all the words in. You want to put all the words in, but you can't. You have to choose those words very, very carefully and make sure that you're using the word that's going to draw the right emotion. I highly suggest just going to thesaurus.com. As my fourth grade teacher said, though, if you use a word, make sure you know like how to use it in real life so that you're not just like putting fancy words out because you want to stay authentic. Use sensory details, right? So again, back to the three Goldilocks and the Three Bears. When you're thinking about that story, you're thinking about that warm soup. You're thinking about the soft chairs and the soft bed, which I maybe shouldn't talk about at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but you know, your cozy, all that it just brings out those emotions. So think about your story and your folks and what you can draw out and what sensory details people can think about, right? So if I'm talking about food, I'm going to talk about taste and I'm going to talk about smells, right? It might be different if you're talking about housing. You might want to talk about warmth, um, all sorts of different things, right? So really back to your audience. Always, this is obvious. Do not use lingo or jargon. Um, People don't know what snap is outside of like certain, you know, contexts. People don't know Alice, you know. So really keep in mind what those things, you know, not to use those words or to use them and explain what they are. Vary your verbs. So this is also very important and something I learned in one of my writing English classes. Um, these are the forms of to be down here. What I like to do is go through my story and circle any form of to be and then try to come up with a better way of saying it. Sometimes you have to say it, but it becomes really boring to read those words over and over, and it'll spice up your writing just by picking different words. Um, I should have come up with an example, but share some later. Also, be aware of power dynamics when interviewing clients. So I know when I'm doing produce prescription, right? Of course, people are going to tell me they love the program. I run the program. I'm a nice lady. They're going to tell me nice things. So, you know, think about that. Maybe you should have somebody else interviewing them, or maybe you can set the stage and say, hey, you know, your name isn't associated with this. I just need some information. You know, you're not going to lose any benefits or any, you know, participation. So just think about that. And also remember that if someone is sharing their story with you, you need to treat that story with respect. Um, I don't know how better to say that, but it's people are very vulnerable when they're telling you their stories. And our our clients and the people that we're in community with are so special, and we just don't want to lose that trust. And we always want to also, you know, show people in the best light we can. So, okay, so hope I'm not going too fast. I would like to just go through an example of how to weave data, how to make a good story. I think that is, for me, that's the easiest way to learn something. So I've decided to share with you a little bit about the Farm to Library program that's at the Broome County Public Library, another place that's close to my heart. So here is just a boring blurb about the Broome County Public Library's Farm to Library program. It tells everything that we do. We give patrons an opportunity to try new produce or be reminded about how delicious a carrot can be. We have all the information here, but like you're probably not gonna, you might remember it if you're a grower and it's really important to you, but you really might not remember this. It has everything you need, but there's no story. So going back to the considerations before writing. So what is the purpose of a story that I might want to tell around the farm to library? What is my call to action? So I want people to donate extra produce to the farm to library cooler. Um, that's my call to action. Very simple. Keep in mind, nothing needs to be complicated. The simpler, the better. Who is your audience? People who grow food or may have extra food in their gardens or may come across extra food. I shouldn't say come across extra food, but you know what I mean. What is important to them? The food that they grow takes time. It takes time to grow, it takes time to care, and they don't want to go that food to go to waste, right? That's important to people who grow food. So why should they donate their produce to the farm to library cooler? Well, it's accessible to everyone, and together we can make a healthy community. That to me seems like something that a person who is growing their own food would be interested, that would motivate them. What data is important? We'll get to that. And what medium are you using? Again, that's not as important in actually like creating the story, but it's always interesting to keep in mind. So for our intents and purpose today, a newsletter, social media. Here is all the data gathering. And I want to thank Kevin Davidson because he and I worked together on the Farm to Library project, and he wrote a great, the starting grant for the Farm to Library through the Community Foundation, and used a lot of actually United Way Broome County information. So this is great. If you click on these links here, they'll take you to some United Way info. So this is all just from a grant that he wrote for that. And I just took everything out of there because don't recreate the wheel, take it from where you got it. So here you can see I've come up with a lot of things. I use some lingo, Alice, Snap, ECPL. These are my notes though. These are things that I think would be very important to growers. So 24,000 county residents are food insecure. 44% live at or below Alice level. 25% of food insecure Broome households don't qualify for means tested programs like SNAP. If you're curious, means tested means are you at a certain income level, etc. Food pantries have limited hours, and you know we have 5,000 patrons that are coming into the Broome County Library, and the information about urban food insecure New York growers. So that's kind of everything I took out of my grants. So how do I give the story of Farm to Library a little bit of shape? So what is my inciting incident? I know that there's a lot of excitement over produce. So that's my inciting incident, is going to be a quote that I have called this, where somebody said, I love raspberries and I haven't had one in 6 years. I really think that stops people, that disrupts people, and that gets them, oh, you haven't had a raspberry in 6 years. It also kind of goes back to that sensory feeling where you got, if you love raspberries, you're thinking about the taste of one. Context and setting, the library cooler. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a library cooler. It's at the circulation desk. Rising action. So while I'm telling this, I'm going to say what we did and why it worked. Here I put the reading program. That was a note. These are literally notes that I was making as I was writing this. So I was thinking about how people come to the reading program and how that might be, our children come to the reading program and how that might be also motivating. Climax. People are using it so often, it's empty. That's our problem. It's empty. So what's the resolution? We could use your help, and every bit that you donate, nothing goes to waste, and we know that. And that call to action is, like I said, donate your produce. So there you have that nice arc of how a story would go. Here's my biggest tip for you. Just start writing. I think sometimes a screen or like a blank piece of paper can really be intimidating to people, and you just have to start getting it out. This was my first draft. I probably went back and changed a few things because I'm an English major. I am constantly editing, but I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to stop and show you a few places where I did change like to be verbs and things like that. So community growers, we could use your help. We're stopping people. We're disrupting them. To watch a grown adult light up as they open the farm to library fridge at the Broome County Public Library and exclaim, I haven't tasted a raspberry in 6 years and I love them, brings satisfaction to a grower's ears. The Farm to Library program, and notice I am using an acronym there, but I said what it was, gives patrons an opportunity to try new produce or even simply remind themselves of how delicious a locally grown carrot can be. Again, I'm not recreating the wheel, that's from something else. Running since June 2023, here I'm proving longevity. The program has given the 5,000 annual visitors to the library free access to fresh veggies. Whether it's a child who's dragging their grown-up over to the cooler, so there I am, okay, that's an image that people can see in their mind, to give, sorry, I have a, to grab some grapes for the ride home, or a patron that doesn't have space for a garden or sometimes time, right? But does have a great recipe for butternut squash, nothing goes to waste. So there we are, convincing people that nothing that they're going to give us is going to go to waste. And in fact, the cooler is generally empty within a day of being filled. This is where we need your help. So here I use is. I can't, that's a great time to use is. But if you look at the rest of that sentence, there's a lot of times where I'm using varied verbs. And then we do our call to, action. Consider donating your extra produce this season to the farm to library cooler, and then specifically tell them how to do it. Bring it to 455 Court Street. That's where the library is. You'll find the cooler at the circulation desk. So that was my rough draft. Kind of told you everything, why I kind of made some of the decisions I did based on the data. Here is my final draft. I'm sure it can still be tweaked, and I'm sure I'll find things as I look at it right now. But look back at that things to keep in mind slide that I showed earlier, and then you go through this. You can see that I've used some bolding here, but very sparsely. These are the things that I think are going to be most important to those folks that I'm reaching out to. Like I said, look back at that things to keep in mind slide. Here I have taken the time to link people to the Broome County Public Library. So if I was putting this right into, say, a newsletter, they could click right on that. Even better would be if we had a page dedicated to the farm to library, but we're getting there. And then there's the phone number for the library. I might even add an email address depending on the medium that I'm using, but we'll get to that. So that is more or less what I would use as my final slide. Let me see. Okay, great. So another thing I want to say is that a picture speaks 1,000 words. Picture on the left, it was our very first farm to library person that took out a banana, as you can see. He's so happy. I was so happy. We were all just like full of joy that this had happened. I wish that I had actually saved the original pictures because I did crop this so that I could zoom right in on his smile and all of the fresh veggies that are in there. And the second picture, you can see that that's a fully stocked fridge. You can see some of the things that I refer to in my writing here. So like that butternut squash, there it is. And it's really plentiful. So, a lot of times it's not plentiful, as I said in the writing. And so to get people to know that, to see what it looks like when it's there, that's why I chose this picture. And for social media, so I kind of put this in here because this would be the time that I would talk a little bit about how we would change things from being that newsletter format to social media. So I might take a couple of these pictures and I might add just some of what I put in the newsletter words, the blurb. I might use one little section for the first picture. I might do a second post and use the second picture. Hey, you want to keep this full too? And link people back to that story on the page. So what I like to recommend to people is to actually create a portfolio for your storytelling. That's just a really fancy word of saying, make a Google folder. Okay. It's a digital folder. Upload the stories that you tell or your stories, your rough drafts, everything, put it in there. Save your favorite photos. Okay. And name them well. All photos get named, like my photos all get named PXL-057. And I can't tell you the amount of time I've wasted over the years looking through pictures. So I cannot suggest any more clearly to name them when you can. Pull out the ones you like first and name them and put them in that folder. You will always be able to find them. You can also conduct short informal interviews, right? So an interview doesn't always have to be like, hey, Tim, can we sit down at 2 o'clock on Thursday and talk for 40 minutes? We could be at an event and you're a person that uses my services. Awesome. Let's chat. Can I just talk to you and take a couple of notes? Or sometimes people will write me emails to give feedback and I'll say, oh my gosh, that's great. Can I save that? So that I can use that in a future newsletter, just like that's just such a compelling thing. So save all those there. Um, Pull your best quotes from surveys and interviews. Again, like everything, just name it well. And you can always create a list of questions that you just refer to. So say like, you know that coming up, we have caring, right? That's coming up soon. So maybe you have a whole plethora of programs that you have that you are funding. So there's a lot of open-ended questions that you could ask folks, like, what are some things you like about our program? Or why would you give money or your time? Or why do you give your money or time to your organization? And then you can draw things out of that and you can just send that out as an email to people. You can call people. You can use those questions in all different ways. And so you just have them in your back pocket, all in that little portfolio. If you're taking pictures of people or using their words, you should have a release from them. Your organization may have a release. If not, you can simply Google release, media release, and you can find lots and lots of forms that you can make your own. But it is an important thing to have. And I also want to say, like, if you are interviewing somebody or talk to somebody at an event, and then like a year later you're going to use their quote, maybe let them know so they're not surprised when they open up a donation letter and there's their picture or their name. So just a few last thoughts before I done here and open it up to questions and collaboration because I'd love to hear any of your tips. But I think the biggest thing, these are the biggest things. Good stories disrupt from the beginning and draw out emotion. You gotta catch people right away, or they're gonna keep scrolling. People are too busy, but you can do it. You can draw out that emotion, because you're gonna tap into your authenticity. Writing is vulnerable. Just like I said, when you're looking at that blank page, but you have passion and you have the expertise, you do. And if it's your story to tell, and it should be, then you'll be able to tap into that authenticity. I did ask, like, is this your story to tell? Because I think this is something that we need to reflect on. We have all different kinds of people in our lives, and just make sure that I don't want to say you have permission, but you've really thought that through. I'm just going to leave that there. Find joy. I know that's like super cliche, and if you know me, it's probably like whatever, everything I always say, but it's the truth. Our work is hard. If you're here and you work for a nonprofit, I know that your work is hard because we all hard. But there is joy, and that is why we do it. That's why we keep doing these things every day. And so you need to shine a light on those stories and on your people. And whether it's your staff or the folks you work with, the people you're in community with, this is what you should do. You should shine the light and uplift folks. And just remember, like I keep saying, that you and your community are the experts for your story. So don't get that imposter syndrome. Don't think like, oh, I can't write like that because I don't want to, you can because it's your people. And if you do want to see some examples from my former storytelling, you can, the link I'll send these slides to everybody. That's some storytelling I did while I was at Vines with Allison. And my stories are the ones from 2020 and 2021. So, I always find that I work better from examples. So hopefully you can find something to use from there. I am going to stop sharing now and kind of hand it back to Tim for questions.
Well, thank you so much, Kate. That was fantastic. And, I was happily writing down notes the entire time. I see some claps in the chat, and I agree. Um, I have questions. However, other people might also, and I'm a talker. So if anyone has a question for Kate, feel free to interject now. If you want to put it in chat, I don't mind reading that out for you. Tajuka, I also agree. Kevin is great. Kevin at the Rural Health Network. Um,
I
so
do. I wanted to also, mine isn't a question, mine's a statement. I thought that was fantastic, Kate. It was so succinct and really is a guide for everyone to be able to tell their story. And you're so enthusiastic about it. It makes it that much better. But I appreciate that and great job.
Thanks so much, Paul. I appreciate that.
so do we have any questions? All right, well, I'm gonna ask mine. So you mentioned this towards the end, this idea of, telling the stories that are appropriate for you to tell, making sure you're not which is can sort of be a fine line of figuring that out. So my question is, and I know I've encountered this where I've talked with other organizations or even sometimes people within the organization who say, I feel like I feel like telling a client's story or telling the story of how we've helped a client is either A, bragging, or we're taking advantage of that person, or we're, we're misusing that. What would be your advice if someone hears that? Because I'm sure you know, you're telling stories that you didn't necessarily collect. So how do you overcome that?
That's a really great question. And it's not an easy answer, right? There's a lot of self-reflection in that. But I think, you need to have a relationship with the persons that you're telling their story. You have to have their permission. And that is the key. You do want to brag. You want to find the person who wants their story shared because they want to help your organization. They want to have other people be able to have the same help, or I hate to use the word help, but have that same connection with you as they did, right? And they want funding. That's what we're looking for, right? That's what we're talking about is funding. So, but you must make sure that you are getting the okay from that person, or perhaps you should reflect and think about that group. Talk to people from that group. Is this my story to tell? Like, you know, you sometimes have to do that, especially like as a white woman. I know that sometimes I just have to ask other people how they're feeling about that. And that's the truth. Like, I think, and there's nothing else I can say about that. I don't know if there's further questions about that. And taking advantage of people, again, that's why you're going to get that permission. You're going to get that release. You're going to make sure that you've talked to them and everybody feels good about it.
Thank you. Yeah, that reminds me of an anecdote I one time heard, which was a development director was going to like the programmatic directors and saying, "Hey, could you give me the name of some clients so I can reach out to them, interview them?" And was just not getting any direction. And what they ended up doing is saying to the programmatic director, "Hey, would you like to reach out to your client?" And that sort of helped reframe that and make it very clear that the case was going to be dealt with, carefulness and respect. So thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree with that too. I think that the person that can interview a client that is the closest to them, that has that relationship, will get the most authentic story. And that person, let's say, I don't want to say will protect them, but they will make sure that only the appropriate things are shared. So that's a beautiful way to put it, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we all do this work because we care. And so we care about the people we care about. Are there any other questions?
Am I that succinct and concise? Did I follow my own rules? Well, I know that everybody is very, very busy also in the nonprofit world. So thank you, Tajuka. So I don't want to keep everybody, if you have places to go and things to do and stories to write. So um, yes, I will send out the slides. Please feel free to reach out to me personally if you want to. I mean, I'm a word nerd as much as I am a veggie nerd. So please feel free. And thank you all so much for coming and listening to me. And everybody that I'm seeing that I haven't seen in a long time, I'm so happy to see you. Tara Terry, I'm looking at you.
Well,
All
I
right.
hope I see a lot of you tonight too.
Yep, you're all welcome at the Beer Tree from 5 to 7 factory. It's in the base, not the basement, the lower level. But if you have any questions about that, reach out to me. But yeah, Kate, by looking at the comments, I think that was so succinct and well
Yeah.
done. It's hard. There were no leaks in the story of telling storytelling. So thank you so much.
Well, that's a plus.
Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, so much. Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll
Bye,
see you in
everybody.
a couple minutes if anyone does have any questions. But feel free to go, and we'll see you later. It's always a good thing when you let people go and the majority of them leave because you know everyone was engaged.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than letting people go and no one leaves.
No, it was really a great
Tim,
job. Really appreciate it. I was
thanks.
going to go and then I forgot I was the person.
You can make me back the person, but I think we don't have any more questions. So I'll just
Okay,
say,
no, thank you so much, Kate. It was really, really well done.
I
and
appreciate you all.
is it cool if I send people your contact information if they have any more questions?
Yes, absolutely. And they are, I will send you the slides right away because I did download them. I just didn't get a chance to send them. And I look forward to seeing you all in person sometime. Tanisha, congratulations. And I can't wait to meet you at the Levarta Center.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, all.